You're cutie. Okay, so today, hey guys, it's Raven Rye and my cat Patty. It looks like she's growing out of my back. And today we are gonna be ranking all the Monster High villains. Oh my god! Literally, how can a cat be so cute? I'm gonna cry. But before I start with the actual ranking, let's first of all discuss who are Monster High villains, because there are some people who act mean sometimes, but I would not really consider them as villains. Okay, so the characters that I think are evil and do some mean actions but are not really villains, who I will not be including in the list, are Igor. This was the accomplice to Bram Stoker in the movie Fright's Camera Action. Kipling, I would also not consider him to be a villain because he was also just the accomplice from this guy from Sculptures. I think he was called, I googled it, he's called Bartleby Farnum. Never heard this name in a movie, I think. Anyway, I would also not consider Holleen to be a villain because she actually does some quite mean things. I mean, in 13 Witches, she has a whole cult, and in Go and Fright On, she was also a leader of the werewolf team. Like, she was also like the leader of them and contributed to the chaos, but I would not consider her to be a villain because Holleen, no, she's nice. And next up is also Pharaoh's mom. I would also not consider her to be a villain because, I mean, she wanted the marriage between Pharaoh and Cleo, but she maybe did some mental pain to Pharaoh, but she was not like actively being mean. It was rather Ramses and Nephra that were actually being mean in this movie. And I mean, she also accepted the decision of her son in the end, in contrast to Ramses and Nephra, who were just still being mean at the end, even though they lost. So she's not a villain to me. And also the Tikis in Sculptures, I would also not consider them to be villains because, I mean, it was their island and they were intruders, so, and they were just being used also by this Sculptures villainous guy, Bartleby Farnum. Let's just call him Farnum. Let's just call him Mr. B, okay? Mr. B is not a Sculptures villain, I can't pronounce that fucking name. And also Perry and Pearl, I would also not consider them to be villains. They're just dumb, let's be honest. And next up is also Cleo. I would not consider her to be a villain because, I mean, look at her family, okay? It is obvious that she's not the nicest person ever, maybe especially in the earlier episodes and movies, but I would still not consider Cleo to be a villain. And I would also not be including any Monster High teachers, so no Mr. Rogers or Mr. Heck. And I will also not be including Gory because she's just a typical high school mean girl, but who does not anything like really extremely mean, so she's just a background character that I will not be including. And I will also not be including Andy, the Beast, because, I mean, he might be the Beast, but he is not a villain to me. I mean, he was still being nice, he was just being used by Mr. B. Okay, so let's start with the actual ranking. By the way, again, this is my personal opinion. Of course, we all have different opinions. My list is not the right list. Feel free to leave your ranking down below. Before we start with the ranking, I want to say what the criteria are, how I did my ranking. So I have 5 points that I think are very important when looking at a villain, because villains are normally in movies are always my favorite characters. So I think a villain has to have a really convincing motive, because villains themselves don't often perceive themselves as villains. They often have their view of the world and they want to do something right. So they have to have a reason, a motive. And then I will also be taking into consideration is that if they have any success, because if a villain is just being mean but is not successful, then he's just stupid, okay? Next up, we have the category if he or she is likable or not, because if a villain is just so mean that he's or she is just so extremely mean that you can't relate to them in any way, that creates a distance between this character, this villain, and the viewer, us, and this is also not cool at all. Next up we have if he or she is interesting or not. If she, again, has interesting background motives of what her or his background story was, how they grew up and why they became the way they are, why they are a villain. And the last spot is if they have a good dynamic with the hero, because a villain can only exist if there is also a hero on the other side. And the dynamic between hero and villain has to be good. Without further ado, let's finally start with the list. At spot 14, my least favorite villain of Monster, have Bram Stoker, also called Lord Stoker. First of all, let's see what he did wrong. So his crimes were political corruption, trying to control Elizabeth and Draculaura into becoming figureheads that only enforce his own rules. He lied about Draculaura being the next vampire queen to keep his reign from ending. Let's look at the convincing motives. So when the movie started, it was very random that he randomly decided that now 400 years after the vampire queen vanished, that he wanted to search for a new vampire queen. And then also the vampire supreme court came to his house and was like, oh my god, when are you finally finding the vampire queen? Like after 400 years, like why now? And why the whole story with Draculaura? It was just so random that he chose her. And also the thing, he was not successful was with one single thing he tried to achieve. He always just, he was also, I mean, he is a vampire, okay? An old, experienced vampire who should actually be very frightening and powerful to us. But he was actually just so stupid. He just sent out his little accomplice, Igor, out all the time. And he was trying then to catch the ghouls like Honey, Wypreen, Claudia, Claudine, Draculaura, Rebecca. But he never succeeded, and also in the end, they didn't succeed one single time. And what is a villain who is just being portrayed, oh my god, yes, he's mean, and that's it. Like, he doesn't succeed in any way. He also gets beaten at the end, and his whole character, like, he just made the film seem very ridiculous because the film had actually a really serious topic, but because of the villain who was supposed to make the movie serious and also sometimes scary, was just a total dumbass who was being also portrayed as just childish and dumb, and this just ruined the film for me, and I really don't like Bram Stoker. And now let's continue with spot 13, which is a mystery called Bartleby Farnum, the guy that I can't pronounce the name of. He was from the movie Escape from Sculptures, and first of all, let's look at his crimes. So he captured monsters and exploits them for profit. He manipulated the Tiki tribe, and also lets the Tiki sacrifice Frankie to Andy the Beast. And he also spread anti-monster hate by calling them freaks. He used the dog whistle to control the wolf siblings, used a mirror to make Deuce turn himself to stone, made Kipling believe his appearance is ugly, and he also destroyed a high school like Monstrai. This all sounds as if he would have a really groundbreaking motive, and it does, but in the movie, he also is just so weird. And I mean, of course, Monstrai is for children, but movies like Ghoul's Rule or 13 Wishes are more than children's movies, you know what I mean? And just Sculptures, they made this movie, because of this villain, also seem again so ridiculous and childish. It was just not mine. And this guy had, in a movie, I didn't catch like what his true motivations are. They were just not convincing at all to me. And again, I also told you that there has to be a good dynamic between the hero and the villain, and this is not here in this case. And also what I found not good at all, that he is not likable at all. Like, he's just being mean, and this is not what a villain should be. A villain should also be not nice, but you should be able to relate to the villain, even if they are mean. But in this case, he's just being mean, he's not relatable. Okay, next up, at spot 12, we have the Gargoyle Team from the movie Friday Night Frights. So, the Gargoyle Team. Let's look at their crimes. So, they cheated at sports and they were bullies with misogynist ideas. They injured players, and their school was responsible for the accident that made Rebecca scatter into a million pieces around the catacombs. And their punishment was that they lose the final in the Skullman Roller Maze match to the Monster High's all-ghoul team, but they were spared from having their school crest taken, unknown if they still are aggressive cheaters afterwards. So And here's the thing, they are not completely unlikable. They only do things wrong, but in the end, in contrast to Bram Stoker or Mr. B, they still are likable at the end because you can see how sad they are. Because, I mean, they're just typical high school boys that have prejudice against everything and everyone, of course, just want to win in their school sport. I think this is very important at the end to see that they were actually sad that they were losing, and then that Frankie still didn't want to take their crest and not continue with these old traditions, and they also agreed on that. So they had a nice character development. They were likable at this point, which is very great, and this is why they are a little bit higher than the other two on the list. Next up at spot 11 we have Van Helscream. He was the main antagonist in the movie Fight On. And now let's look at his crimes. His crimes were that he spreads anti-monster hate through encouraging segregation and fighting between vampires and werewolves. And he also wanted to end the monster unity because he believed that monsters fighting was what was keeping the human species thriving. And he also tricked the school board into trusting him and believing his methods were good. And he had also accomplished Mrs. Crabgrass' capture and impersonate Headless Head Mrs. Bloodgood and encourages the fighting. He also imprisoned her in a stone statue. Then he imprisoned the ghouls in a cage over a lava pit in the catacombs, and he hunted monsters for fun. So, was he likable? I really like his character design, and this is also really important about characters, if they have what their appearance, what their aura are. And the things with this character is that he was being serious. He was not being portrayed in a childish, funny way, but his actions were serious. And let's all be honest, Fight On was a movie about racism, and he was a racist in this movie. And so this was a very important lesson, and to have a character that is finally not being portrayed as childish, but rather to make children realize that this is an important, serious topic. I think this character did this really well. Also, how they showed how he created the tensions between vampires and werewolves. And it's just amazing that Monster was able to do this with vampires and werewolf as like these two groups. I don't really have anything more negative about him to say. They're just characters that are a little bit more likable than him. This is why he's only on spot 11. But without further ado, let's move on to the top 10. At spot 10, we have another Helscream. We have his niece, Lilith Van Helscream. Crimes was that he wanted to be like her monster hunting uncle, Van Helscream. She vandalized property, framed the monsters for vandalizing, and also spread anti-monster hate through blaming monsters for her crimes. And she also displayed a prejudice against monsters, and she's also a bully kind of. Here we have a character who went from being totally unlikable to really likable, because in that scene in the catacombs when Cleo and Lilith meet for the first time, then talk about fashion and everything, she appears to be really likable, and also at the end that she totally twists her character around and is then even helping the ghouls is just perfect, because in the beginning we can also see what her motives are. Her motives are that she wants to please her uncle, that she wants to be like him, and just imagine one of your family members being successful, and everyone in your world, in the human world, likes him, because we see that the humans don't really like the monsters. So it's a hero in the human world, and imagine your family member being a hero, and you of course want to be like him. So her motives are reasonable, but then he realizes that he was wrong. Like, this hero is a false hero, so he's a false icon. And then she changes her whole character, and this is perfect. The only thing why she is a little bit lower down the list is because she's not that villainous evil. Like, the success she has is not that big as the others on this list. This is why she's only on spot 10. Next up at spot 9, we also have the other villains of the movie Ghouls Rule. We have the police, especially the sheriff. His crimes are that he wrongly accused and convinced Holt Hyde. He wanted to decapitate him with the trick or treatment. He also spread anti-monster hate by rallying an angry mob to hunt down Holt Hyde, and he also lied to avoid the persecution for his crimes. And his punishment was actually nothing. He gets to party with the monsters, and dances with headless Headmistress Bloodgood. I think this tells us a lot about society. All the villains on this list get punished. Only one does not, and it's a police officer. I'm just gonna leave that here. Thing is about the Goldthrill police officer that he is likable because he's just portrayed in such a funny way, because of course the movie is for children, so he had to be funny in some way, and he actually is fucking funny. Next up at spot 8 we have Carla Mary and the Kraken. So her crimes are that she tried to actually kill the whole Monster High students, and also the Kraken vandalized the Monster High building. So the thing is about Carla Mary, of course, I know a lot of you don't like her and also don't like the movie Great Scary Reef, but I actually really like Carla because I can understand her motivations very good, because she was jealous of Laguna for having a good family that also was able to attend the dance contest they were having. And Carla, because her dad was the frightening Kraken, of course, wasn't able to just sit in the audience as any other parent. And this made her really sad and frustrated and wanted to get revenge on Laguna once she came down to the Great Scary Reef again. And at the end, she also turns good. Like Laguna forgives her, and she is just nice again. And so she had a nice character development, which means she was likable, and she also had success. I mean, she managed to get through that portal in the Monster High pool and then destroy huge chunks of the Monster High school. So overall, she was a great villain. She had good motivations. She was interesting. There was a very good hero-villain dynamic between Laguna and Carla because they were just a perfect combo. So next up at spot 7 we have the villains of the movie Freakafusion, which is Frankie's granddad, Sparky, and this Frankenstein monster he created. So first of all, let's look at their crimes. The thing is that he is not really a villain in a mean way, because he just wanted a family, he was an orphan, and he was just a mad scientist. And it is often said that these two character traits, being a genius and mad, are very often in the same mind. And he is just, so we have an convincing motivation, we know why he's doing what he's doing, and he has actually no evil intents, but he is still... The thing is, this is what I mean with villains. They all have no evil intents in their worldview. And for his worldview, this was what he's doing is right, as with all villains. In his case, it is the things about him that he is still so likable. I mean, imagine if like Mr. B, like the guy from Sculptures, would have built this monster, it would be like, he would be so unlikable, just his character. But Sparky, on the other hand, is so extremely likable, and this is what makes a great villain. And also, the dynamic between hero and villain, like we have Frankie and her granddad, is just perfect. I mean, they're even relatives, and the whole time travel thing, that they're able to meet each other, like at same age and everything, perfect. And also, he has success. He builds this thing, and he accidentally destroys the whole school, and then at the end Frankie dies, spoiler alert, and it's a very sad, intense moment. And this is then also the scene when his career shifts around, he realizes what he did wrong, and then he wants to save Frankie, so he has a character development, so he has everything. He is just perfect, and he's also very hot, okay? Anyway, let's move on to spot number 6. And at spot 6 we have the Red Lady. First of all, let's look at her crimes. She was the villain from the movie Haunted. Her crimes was that she scared monsters for fun, and this was the reason why so many chains were given to her that she then had to work off. But instead, she was then a headmistress and gave all of her change to her students. And she also ruled her school with a totalitarian grip and stole the ghosts and phantoms from the monster world and chained them up. So I think her motivations are stupid. they are not really motivations, because the thing is that there was like this big evil, she was portrayed as this big evil red lady, but all she did was scaring monsters for fun, and this was the reason why she was given chains. This is not really convincing to me, but she is kind of likable. I like her character design. The thing is that most of the time in the movie we just see her big face on a screen, and I don't like that. But in the end, the moment when Spectra says that like, you are being the reason why these chains are on you, like when she realizes that she is the reason for her misery and that nobody else is the reason, this is a very tense moment. And I mean, she is good at what she's doing. She is creating a horrible environment, a school which is not nice for anyone, and then also putting chains on them and just being so mean and evil, but still thinking that this is right what she's doing, and just being also having a sad background story because she's just stupid, okay? She doesn't realize what she's doing. And also the dynamic between hero and villain, we have Spectra and the Red Lady, Spectra and Porter and her friends, and the Red Lady is also a good dynamic, and this whole thing is set in the ghost world. It's kind of cool. She's not my favorite, but she did some very big evil. This is why she's high on the list. Next up, at spot 5, we have Toralized, right, and sometimes with her the Werecat twins. So their crimes was just throughout a whole of episodes and movies was bullying, pulling mean pranks, becoming traitors to the field leading team, and trying to sabotage their chances for the Machinals, the monster Machinals. They also had Nephra make her sister unhappy, and Toralized herself had stolen Caddy Noir's voice and tried to use it to become a Broadway sensation, and she also aided Nephra in her plans during New York. And their punishment was that they have become less mean since discovering that Nephra was using them, but they still like to cause trouble and be mean to other monsters from time to time. The motives are lacking sometimes, because the only reason why she's doing all of this is just because she's mean, because she's a cat. I mean, I agree that many cats are mean. That's not a play for my cat. You saw how nice she is. By the way, she just left me, okay? Many cats are. But the thing is that she is very likable. Like, she's probably the most likable villain of all of them. This is why she's very high up on the list. And also, she has success. Like, she stole Caddy Noir's voice, of course, it gets taken away, but she and everything that she's doing. Also in the movie Why Do Ghouls Fall in Love with Valentine, she set this whole thing up. She was the reason why Valentine actually came to Monster High again. And also in the movie Friday Night Frights with the Gargoyle Team, she made all of this up and helped them to beat her own school team.
Wow, she's really snitched.
So the thing that her willingness to stab everyone in the back eventually leads to her downfall. But she is still so successful and also likable in what she's doing, which is why she just had to be high up on the list. Next up, at spot 4, Madame Gusty, Monatella Gusty. She was the villain in the movie Scary. So her crimes were that she manipulated designers to be like her, and also imprisoned designers, for example Garot, to extend her unlife span, and she also stole their work for her clothing line, and possibly letting her prisoners die when they are replaced with a new talent. So this is not stuff that you joke around, like this is serious. She literally kidnapped people and let them die and work for her. This is probably one of the meanest villains we have on this list, and also the most sadistic. And her punishment was that the ghouls hijack her fashion show, and Claudine becomes the new focus of the fashion world, causing her to vanish forever. This is the only villain on this list that actually died. And Scaris, at least in Germany, is the only movie that is rated for ages 0 and up, so it's the least serious or scary movie, but it's the only movie where someone actually dies. So the thing about this is that this is very cruel because in all the movies, all villains are giving a second chance, but the reason why Monatella de Gusty exists is that she's a ghost, so she can only exist when people like what she's doing, when they are buying her clothing line, when she gets attention. She literally dies when she does not get attention and is popular. And this concept to begin with, just imagine you are being born with that. I mean, you can't change that. I mean, she had no other chance to, I don't know if she had any other chance, but in the movie it is not portrayed that she had any other chance. So the ghouls knew about that and they wanted her to die because they knew that if she was not popular anymore, she would vanish. So our monstrous units are actually killers. Comment your thoughts about that down below. But I think that she was still being likable because of that, and her cat was also the cutest ever. And now we come to the top 3, guys. So top 3. My third favorite villain of all time is Kieran Valentine. So first of all, let's look at his crimes. He made ghouls fall in love with him through hypnosis and stealing love from his victims by breaking their hearts, which leads to any feelings of love or joy being drained from them. And he also splits up couples like Dracula and Claude, and he also takes the claim for inventing Valentine's Day. So the thing is about Valentine that his motivations are very cool. Because, I mean, this is not official, but the creator and designer of Monster, Garrett Sanders, said on his Instagram story that some monster characters were supposed to be LGBTQ+, and many of us now consider Valentine to be gay, and that maybe the reason why she was breaking all of the girls' hearts was that he did it because he was not being him true self and being so frustrated that maybe people would not accept him as who we are, and this is why he was being so mean and frustrated and broke other girls' hearts, and he never found true love in a girl because he does not like girls. Such a cool concept. And so we have the convincing motives. He also has success. I mean, have you seen his freaking chamber of broken hearts? This is one of the most morbid but also most amazing scenes in monster movies ever. Like when you see the pictures of the girls crying. Oh my god, for a children's movie, this is... I love that shit. I love that shit as a kid. And is he likable? Yeah, hell yes, he is very hot. And this scene from like the 15 or 1600s in a school with Dracula, when he comes in, every girl is like, oh my god, and he's like, he is hot, okay? Is he interesting? Hell yeah, Valentine is very interesting. He has a deep character, as I just told you. And also, is there a good dynamic between the hero and the villain? In this case, I would say also yes, because we have like Cupid and Claude as the main heroes and Valentine as the villain. Just works perfectly. I love Valentine a lot. And now, who takes spot number 2? I think the second best villains are, and yes, this is a double pack, we have Nephra and Ramses the Nile. So Nephra, her crimes is that she, throughout the webisodes movie, manipulates her little sister and takes over the field leading team, tries to sabotage her sister's Monster Nationals competition performance. She uses magical artifacts to become Monster High's top field leader and win a charity drive. She also turned Toralized and the twins into traitors and made them believe they could trust her. She had an unreliable modeling career in Milan, broke up her sister's relationship with Zeus and forced her into marriage with Seth, and tried to rebuild her lost empire with the power of the comet. And her punishment is nothing. With Ramses, it's actually the same thing. So the thing about Nephra and Ramses is that they are the smartest villains ever. They don't get punished for anything and their success is very great. And are they still likable even though they do so much evil and get away with it? Hell yes, they are fucking likable, because they are just... the aura of them is just so interesting, and they actually have plans, like especially in the movie Buyok Buyok. Also, they even have a song like Empire, the song Empire, and it's so fire. And the way they're just masterminds, and this is what makes a good villain, that they are actually smart, are successful, and are likable. And they are all of that. Do they have groundbreaking motives? Not really, but they actually, yes, they just want to be successful and have power, and some people are just like that. We had... So, one last spot is left. At spot number 1, my favorite villain, I think we all have the same opinion. The best villain of all time for Monster High is Ginny Wisp Grant, the sister, or better say, the shadow of Gigi Grant. Gigi wanted a friend in her lamp when she was younger, and then the Brothers Grimm wrote Wisp, and then she was not happy with only being the shadow, and then she wanted to actually become real. Let's look at her crimes. So Wisp trapped students inside a lamp. She used mind control. She created shadow doppelganger, and she also turned the students into mindless zombies, making Howleen turn on her friends and family, wanting someone to wish her out of the lamp as a true genie with unlimited power to do anything she wants. And her punishment was that, oh my god, that was so cute, because Howleen's last wish that Wisp was free, and that Gigi turns Wisp into a good true genie who takes over her duties in the lamp. I think she is truly the most powerful villain, and like has the ability to do magic. So she's very powerful and thus has great success. So this point is 100% full. Has she convincing motives? Hell yes. I mean, just imagine you are born and you're just being a shadow. That's not nice. So you want to become real, and the only way you can do this is by doing mean, evil actions. But again, in your mind, what you are doing is right. So this is tragic, and we love tragic villains. So this is why she's also likable. And is she interesting? Hell yes. The whole story, especially that we got at the beginning, like with this deer, she was called Fauna, and the whole story, and also what I say with Nephra and Ramsey, that they were strategic geniuses. Have you seen Wisp, like all the things she was doing at once, like manipulating Howleen and this whole mob of like the evil ghouls? By the way, all the evil ghouls are now also on spot number 1, like evil Howleen, Claudine, Ghoulia, Abby, Frankie, Draculaura, and then also communicating through the girls in the lamp through this mirror. She was like multitasking so many things, and this is what makes a great villain. She's smart, she's likable, she's amazing. We love Wisp. She turned out good at the end, which makes her even more likable because she is good now. Guys, she is perfect. That's it, guys. That was my list. That was my ranking of all the Monster High villains. I really hope you enjoyed this video. So this was Raven Rye. Bye.